Indictment, 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 indictment. Trump live updates. Grand jury and election probe meet to consider indictment. What will they do? Man, I wish we had recordings of grand jury proceedings. That would be super, super cool. A sealed indictment has been handed down against unnamed individual in the investigation of former President Donald Trump and his allies' attempts to overturn the 2020 election. Trump announced July 18th he received a letter from special counsel Jack Smith notifying him he is the target of a grand jury examining the January 6th riot, an effort to overturn the 2020 election. Members of the grand jury in the January 6th investigation were spotted at the courthouse this morning. A new indictment was filed last week in a separate special counsel investigation involving his alleged mishandling of classified records. That indictment brought more charges against the former president and a top aide and added a newly charged defendant, Carlos de Oliveira, a property manager, Mar-a-Lago, blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, his legal woes are costing his political operations millions of dollars. Nice. What's the big man wilding about today? Oh, there's a lot to wild about. Oh, there's a lot. Live view from outside the court, no Trump yet. Well, Trump isn't going to be there because this is an indictment, not an arraignment. An indictment is when the grand jury meets and decides to indict the person. An arraignment is when the indicted person is brought in, has the charges read against them. They're arrested, they're brought in. So Trump won't be making an appearance. But if the indictment is handed down, we get to see how many counts. We get to see how many federal charges are brought against him. And that means there's a chance that we might see that beautiful word inscribed in ink handed down by an FBI special prosecutor. Sedition. After all these years, we might finally see that word used in a legal context. Cope or hope? It's possible. Call into C-SPAN? Yeah, I guess that's always an option, you know, really make a spectacle of it. That's real content hogging right there, okay, as a political streamer. Is just watching C-SPAN, calling in, just making an absolute mess of things. Could it open the door to charges against the other GOP members, or will they just stop at getting Trump? Well, the whole grand jury indictment process here can name more people than just Trump, but it seems like this is just a Trump thing. Otherwise, other people would have been notified, and we would have heard, like, Marjorie Taylor Greene screeching about it. You know, going after Trump alone is not enough, but it's, I mean, it's better than nothing. Oh, wait, the indictment is confirmed? They voted yes? Justin, former President Trump has been informed he's been indicted. The indictment happened. Okay, the grand jury voted yes, which means that any minute now, Jack Smith should be coming out and giving a press conference on the details of the indictment. So, yeah, okay, so the grand jury met, they deliberated, they've delivered a yes on the indictment, and now the prosecutor, Jack Smith, will come forward and he will lay out the details of the indictment. And then after that will be the arraignment, not the first one Donald Trump has had lately, where he will be brought to a courthouse and have the indictment charges presented to him directly. So come on.
Past the top of the hour.
Come on.
So we'll keep taking
Special
calls.
Counsel Jack Smith, Jack Smith, if that even is his real name.
Good morning. Hello, Julie.
Hi.
You are very informative. I've got 3 quick questions.
Jack Smith.
Is it true that Canadian prescription medicine is a lot cheaper than the United States? That's number 1. And what is Congress doing about health care coverage for psychiatric patients? Is that improving? Are they addressing that? And number 3, my husband is 62. He pays $500 a month for his health care with I think it's a $6,000 deductible. He's self-employed. Is there anything that's going to lower that price in the future? Thank you.
All right. What was the first one? Oh,
Canadian prescriptions.
Canadian prescription drugs are cost less because Canada has limits on how much drug makers can charge.
Call in and ask about Jack Smith.
Every other country except the United States somehow.
Have you seen the Jesse Gender animal abuse allegations? I assume this is clipped out of context. I don't know the context, so I can't really say much. But I did see the video.
I once threw a cat in anger. Again, no real reason. I don't even remember what the argument was. I was just pissed off. So I picked up the nearest thing near me. Didn't see it as a living being. Just picked up my cat and threw it across the room.
I think she's literally quoting what somebody else said. So it literally does. It's not even like this isn't anything, you know. It's just like haha, clip jumped, right?
That cat was scared of me for the rest of its life.
I think she's reading out something that somebody else read talking about their experience or something. I don't really know. I don't know the context. No, she's quoting from her personal experience. Is she? Okay, well, I haven't seen. Is that really? So she actually is saying that's something she did? Really? Oh. Well, that's pretty bad. She said it was because of male socialization. Okay. I mean, I'm male socialized, and I've never thrown a cat at a wall. I try to eat them pretty often. Not successful yet, but all right. We've got an image post from Trump on Truth Social. Statement from the Trump campaign. This is nothing more than the latest... I'm not going to do it for all this. This is nothing more than the latest corrupt chapter in the continued pathetic attempt by the Biden crime family and their weaponized DOJ to interfere with the 2024 presidential election, in which President Trump is the undisputed frontrunner and leading by substantial margins. But why did they wait 2.5 years to bring these fake charges right in the middle of President Trump's winning campaign for 2024? Why was it announced the day after the big crooked Joe Biden scandal broke out from the halls of Congress? The answer, by the way, the big crooked Joe Biden scandal is apparently that one time Hunter Biden called Joe Biden when he was at a business meeting and Joe Biden was on speakerphone and he talked about the weather. That apparently actually is what they've revealed. That he talked about the weather on speakerphone to some people there. Trump charges? We have the Trump charges from BNO News. Conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, conspiracy against rights. No official use of sedition. Damn, that sucks. But still, very good. I don't know much about the legal details of these charges. We have the paper? Oh, fuck, we have to read it all, don't we? God damn it. Okay, well, I have to keep this running in the background for when Jack Smith comes out. 45 pages. Yeah, we're not going to read all of it the way we did with the last one. I have stuff I need to do. But we're going to read the important parts. Maybe Control F sedition. Oh, you think we're going to get like a Hail Mary? No, sorry. No Hail Mary, folks. No mention of sedition. Okay, I can't have this running in the background. Tell me when Jack Smith shows up, okay? One of you needs to have that in another monitor, all right? I have to focus on this. Okay, 4 counts. The defendant, Donald J. Trump, was the 45th president of the United States and a candidate for re-election in 2020. The defendant lost the 2020 presidential election. Ooh, confirmed. Despite having lost, the defendant was determined to remain in power, so for more than 2 months following Election Day on November 3rd, 2020, the defendant spread lies that there had been outcome-determinative fraud in the election and that he had actually won. These claims were false, and the defendant knew they were false. We know that for a fact. The defendant repeated and widely disseminated them anyway to make his knowingly false claims appear legitimate, create an intense national atmosphere of mistrust and anger, and erode public faith in the administration of the election. The defendant had a right, like every American, to speak publicly about the election and even to claim falsely that there had been outcome-determinative fraud during the election that he had won, and that he had won. He was also entitled to formally challenge the results of the presidential election through lawful and appropriate means, such as by seeking recounts or audits of the popular vote in states or filing lawsuits challenging ballots and procedures. Instead, in many cases, the defendant did pursue these methods of contesting the election results. His efforts to change the outcome in any state through recounts, audits, or legal challenges were uniformly unsuccessful. Shortly after Election Day, the defendant also pursued unlawful means of discounting legitimate votes and subverting the election. In doing so, the defendant perpetrated 3 criminal conspiracies. A conspiracy to defraud the United States by using dishonesty, fraud, and deceit to impair, obstruct, and defeat the lawful federal government, function by which the results of the presidential election are collected, counted, and certified by the federal government in violation of 18 U.S.C. 371. A conspiracy to corruptly obstruct and impede the January 6 congressional proceeding at which the collected results of the presidential election are counted and certified in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1512K, and a conspiracy against the right to vote and have one's vote counted in violation of 18 U.S.C. 241. Whew! These conspiracies, which built on the widespread mistrust the defendant was creating through pervasive and destabilizing lies about election fraud, targeted a bedrock function of the U.S. federal government, the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election. From on or about November 14th, 2020, through on or about January 20th, 2021, in the District of Columbia and elsewhere, the defendant, Donald J. Trump, did knowingly combine, conspire, confederate, and agree with co-conspirators, known and unknown to the grand jury, to defraud the United States by using dishonesty, fraud, and deceit to impair, obstruct, and defeat the lawful federal government function by which the results of the presidential election are collected, counted, and certified by the federal government. The purpose of the conspiracy was to overturn the legitimate results of the 2020 presidential election by using knowingly false claims of election fraud to obstruct the federal government function by which these results are collected, counted, and certified. The defendant enlisted co-conspirators to assist him in his criminal efforts to overturn the legitimate results of the 2020 presidential election and retain power. Among these were, other people are getting named. Well, not named, but referred to. Co-conspirator 1, an attorney who was willing to spread knowingly false claims. Okay, so that's Rudy Giuliani. Co-conspirator 2, an attorney who devised and attempted to implement a strategy to leverage the vice president's ceremonial role overseeing that could be Giuliani or, what's the Kraken? Powell? Yeah, that could be Powell. Any of these could be Giuliani or Kraken. I don't know who specifically they are. Co-conspirator 3, an attorney whose unfounded claims of election fraud the defendant privately acknowledged to others sounded crazy. Oh, I remember that. The name Eastman. Nonetheless, the defendant embraced and publicly amplified co-conspirator 3's disinformation. Co-conspirator 4, a Justice Department official who worked on civil matters and who, with the defendant, attempted to use the Justice Department to open sham crime investigations and influence state legislators with knowingly false claims of election fraud. That one would be easy to pin down as well, but I don't remember the name. In order, Giuliani, Eastman, and Powell. Okay. Number 5, an attorney who assisted in devising and attempting to implement a plan to submit fraudulent slates of presidential electors to obstruct the certification proceeding. And co-conspirator 6, a consultant who helped implement a plan to submit fraudulent states of presidential electors in order to obstruct the certification proceeding. So they're going after the people directly around Trump and not like Republican Party officials in total, which makes sense. There was a much higher level of conspiracy and collaboration within Trump's circle explicitly, and not like the Republican Party broadly. The federal government function. I know how the federal government functions. Thank you. Oh, boy. The defendant's conspiracy to impair, obstruct, and defeat the federal government function through dishonesty, fraud, and deceit included the following manner and means. A. The defendant and co-conspirators used knowingly false claims of election fraud to get state legislators and election officials to subvert the legitimate election results and change electoral votes for the defendant's opponent, Joe Biden, or Joseph R. Biden Jr., to electoral votes for the defendant. That is, on the pretext of baseless fraud claims, the defendant pushed officials in certain states to ignore the popular vote, disenfranchise millions of voters, dismiss legitimate electors, and ultimately cause the ascertainment of and voting by illegitimate electors in favor of the defendant. B. The defendant and co-conspirators organized fraudulent slates of electors in 7 targeted states, attempting to mimic the procedures that the legitimate electors were supposed to follow under the Constitution and other federal and state laws. This included causing the fraudulent electors to meet on the day appointed by federal law on which legitimate electors were to gather and cast their votes, cast fraudulent votes for the defendant, and sign certificates falsely representing they were legitimate electors. Some fraudulent electors were tricked into participating based on the understanding their votes would be used only if the defendant succeeded in outcome determinative lawsuits within their state, which the defendant never did. The defendant and co-conspirators then caused these fraudulent electors to transmit their false certificates to the vice president and other government officials to be counted at the certification proceeding on January 6th. Okay, just so you guys understand the severity of this, okay? Every state has their own process for sending electors over to D.C. in order to certify votes for the president. That's the Electoral College, right? What the Trump cabinet, or not cabinet, what the Trump co-conspirators did was they gathered slates or groups of illegitimate electors, lied to them, had them certify their votes, and sent those votes to the vice president, whose job it is to certify the votes. Essentially, like this would be the equivalent of like a county has a bunch of presidential votes and you going, no, not those. And then you submit your own set of fake votes and go like, no, these are the real ones, while lying to the people who submitted the fake ones. Like, some of the false electors were aware of the conspiracy and some were not, but like it is as direct of an attempt at overturning an election as you could possibly get, you know? The defendant and co-conspirators attempted to use the power and authority of the Justice Department to conduct sham election crime investigations and send a letter to the targeted states that falsely claimed the DOJ had identified significant concerns that may have impacted the election outcome. Vaush, an Obama judge, is in charge of this case. Really? Give me the judge. Give me the judge. I know it was at the top. I don't want to lose my place. Who's the judge? Obama himself. Tanya Chutkan? Tanya Chutkan? Holy shit. If ever a name indicated that he's... Are you kidding me? Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. The last thing you want to see if you're a Republican politician being charged with crimes. Appointed in 2014 by Obama. A woke judge. Keep in mind, by the way, that the person handling the case for his indictment concerning his mishandling of classified documents is not only a Trump-appointed judge, but a lunatic, like, Trump devotee who tried to block, like, the proceedings prior. Like, the person handling that indictment is not just a Trump judge, it's a pro-Trump judge. So I don't want to hear any bitching. The defendant co-conspirators attempted to enlist the vice president to use a ceremonial role at the Jan 6 certification proceeding to fraudulently alter the election results. First, using knowingly false claims of election fraud, the defendant and co-conspirators attempted to convince the VP to use the defendant's fraudulent electors, reject legitimate electoral votes, or send legitimate electoral votes to state legislators for review rather than counting them. When that failed, on the morning of January 6, the defendant and co-conspirators repeatedly knowingly false claims of election fraud to gathered supporters, falsely told them the VP had the authority to and might alter the election result, and directed them to the Capitol to obstruct the certification proceedings and exert pressure on the VP to take the fraudulent actions he had previously refused. This was the whole point of January 6. The VP has the ceremonial role of certifying the electoral votes, but in reality can't actually change the outcome. The VP doesn't have the power to just go, no, actually, you know. And for not doing the thing that he couldn't do, Trump supporters wanted Mike Pence guillotined. After it became public on the afternoon of January 6th that the VP would not fraudulently alter the election results, a large and angry crowd, including many individuals who the defendant had deceived into believing the VP could and might change the election results, violently attacked the Capitol and halted the proceeding. The Jack Smith statement? Start.
The answers. I'd love to hear your response. Thank you.
I think you put your finger on what I'm trying to say, which is that the way
almost, they have it in the corner.
Feel
Move
and
over.
Experience the economy is the American economy the president.
Okay, let me know when it actually starts. They're assembling right now. It could still be a few minutes. Okay. As violence ensued, the defendant and co-conspirators exploited the disruption by redoubling efforts to levy false claims of election fraud and convince members of Congress to further delay the certification based on those claims. The defendant, his co-conspirators, and their agents made knowingly false claims that there had been an outcome-determined fraud. Okay, so these are examples that prove that Donald Trump and the people around him knew for an absolute fact that this was a lie, that fraud did not happen. The defendant's vice president, who personally stood to gain by remaining in office as part of the defendant's ticket and whom the defendant asked to study fraud allegations, told the defendant he had seen no evidence of outcome-determinative fraud. The senior leaders of the Justice Department, appointed by the defendant, remember the defendant is Trump, and responsible for investigating credible allegations of election crimes, told the defendant on multiple occasions that various allegations for fraud were unsupported. The Director of National Intelligence, the defendant's principal advisor on intelligence related to national security, disabused the defendant of the notion that the intelligence community's findings regarding foreign interference would change the outcome of the election. The Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, whose existence the defendant signed into law to protect the nation's cybersecurity infrastructure from attack, joined an official multi-agency statement that there was no evidence any voting system had been compromised, and that they declared the 2020 election, quote, the most secure in American history. Days later, after the CISA director, whom the defendant had appointed, announced publicly the election security experts were in agreement that claims of computer-based election fraud were unsubstantiated, the defendant fired him. Senior White House attorneys selected by the defendant to provide him candid advice, informed the defendant there was no evidence of outcome determinative fraud, and told him his presidency would end on Inauguration Day of 2021. Senior staffers on the defendant's 2020 re-election campaign, whose sole mission was the defendant's re-election, told the defendant on November 7, 2020, that he had only a 5 or 10% chance of prevailing in the election and that success was contingent on the defendant winning ongoing vote counts or litigation in Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin. Within a week of that assessment, the defendant lost in Arizona, meaning he had lost the election. State legislators and officials, many of whom were the defendant's political allies, had voted for him and wanted him to be reelected, but they repeatedly informed the defendant his claims of fraud in their states were unsubstantiated or false and resisted his pressure to act based on them. State and federal courts, the neutral arbiters responsible for ensuring the fair and even-handed administration of election laws, rejected every outcome-determinative post-election lawsuit filed by the defendant, his co-conspirators, and allies, providing the defendant real-time notice his allegations were without merit. The defendant widely disseminated his false claims of election fraud for months, despite the fact that he knew, and had in many cases been informed directly, that they were not true. His knowingly false statements were integral to his criminal plans to defeat the federal government function, obstruct the certification, and interfere with others' right to vote and have their votes counted. He made these knowingly false claims throughout the post-election time period, including those below that he made immediately before the attack on the Capitol on January 6. A. The defendant insinuated that more than 10,000 dead voters had voted in Georgia. Just 4 days earlier, Georgia's Secretary of State had explained to the defendant this was false. B. The defendant asserted there had been 205,000 more votes than voters in Pennsylvania. The defendant's acting attorney general and acting deputy attorney general had explained to him that this was false. The defendant said there was a suspicious vote dump in Detroit. The defendant's attorney general had explained to him that this was false, and the defendant's allies in the Michigan state legislature, the Speaker of the House of Representatives and Majority Leader of the Senate, had publicly announced there was no evidence of substantial fraud in the state. D. The defendant claimed there had been tens of thousands of double votes and other fraud in Nevada. The Nevada Secretary of State had previously rebutted the defendant's fraud claims by publicly posting a, quote, facts versus myths document, explaining the Nevada judges had reviewed and rejected them, and the Nevada Supreme Court had rendered a decision denying such claims. The defendant said that more than 30,000 non-citizens had voted in Arizona. The defendant's own campaign manager had explained to him that such claims were false, and the Speaker of the Arizona House of Representatives, who had supported the defendant in the election, had issued a public statement that there was no evidence of substantial fraud in Arizona. F. The defendant asserted that voting machines in various contested states had switched votes from defendant to Biden. The defendant's attorney general, acting attorney general, and acting deputy attorney general all explained to him that this was false, and numerous recounts and audits had confirmed the accuracy of voting machines. Shortly after the election day, which fell on November 3, 2020, the defendant launched his criminal scheme. On November 13th, the defendant's campaign attorneys conceded in court that he had lost the vote count of the state of Arizona, meaning based on the assessment of the defendant's campaign advisors had given him just a week earlier, the defendant had lost the election. So the next day, the defendant turned to co-conspirator 1, whom he announced would spearhead his efforts going forward to challenge the election results. From that point on, the defendant and his co-conspirators executed a strategy. So, going forward, this outlines in more detail the specifics of the claims made previously, namely the nature of the conspiracy. We're about to see Jack Smith talk, so we're probably going to get a repeat of a lot of this stuff. So going over all of this is just a more specific series of counts for the general claims that have been made. I am also remiss to go over all of this because a lot of this is public information. I mean, a lot of this is stuff that we have gone over on stream, and it is quite long. So this is laying out all of the ways in which they lied, the specific things they did to lie, the ways in which their lies were proven to be lies, the whole shebang. Yeah, apparently Trump is going to be arraigned in 2 days. Jesus Christ, they're moving quickly. Yes, this is going over it in specific states, and boy, there's a lot of information here. Hoo boy, hoo dilly, is what I like to say when I see a lot of information. Yes, it is likely, considering the fact that the others are named co-conspirators, that they are also going to be charged. This is totally unprecedented. The defendant's exploitation of the violence and chaos at the Capitol. So this goes into the details of what happened on January 6th specifically. how Donald Trump fueled the flames. How likely is it Trump will run from prison? Trump will run no matter what, I think. And now here are the counts. So all of that was the first count? Yeah, it seems like it. That was all the conspiracy. That whole thing was like count 1. Jesus Christ. And then count 2, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding. Donald Trump did knowingly conspire, combine, confederate, and agree with co-conspirators to impede an official proceeding, that is, the certification of the electoral vote in violation of Title 18 U.S. Code. Count 3, that he did corruptly obstruct and impede an official proceeding, that is, certification of the electoral vote. And count 4, that he did knowingly combine, conspire, and so on, known and unknown to the grand jury, to injure, oppress, threaten, and intimidate one or more persons in the free exercise and enjoyment of a right and privilege secured to them by the Constitution and laws of the U.S., that is, the right to vote and have one's vote counted. Jesus. If they're arraigning him in only 2 days... Wait, hold on. Do we have an assessment that indicates how long they feel this is going to take? Remember from the previous indictment, they said that the trial would only take 3 weeks because it was so overwhelming. Do we have the paper filed from the prosecutor to indicate how long they think the trial would be after the arraignment? We don't have the paper? Okay, I can't imagine it would be long, but there's a lot of evidence to go over. This is much easier than the documents case? Yeah, I suppose it is. It's also only 4 counts. Jesus Christ, this is huge. Jack Smith should be talking pretty much any minute now. They need to begin the trials. Trump's legal team is going to do everything in their power to delay. On every level, the Trump legal team has been delaying the legal proceedings. They're currently doing it for the indictments associated with the mishandling of classified documents. I don't know how long they're going to be able to do it here, though. Has he got a legal team left? Well, a lot of them did quit. This will 100% be the first case to trial. Yeah, a lot of Republicans are going to say well, Trump has already said the reason why they're doing this now is to interrupt his election. First of all, they would say that no matter what. They would say that no matter when this came through. They would say it was an attempt to fraudulently deny him the ability to run for election. But also, my guess is that they have been delaying aggressively behind the scenes, trying to restrict these proceedings as much as possible. And the reason it's going forward now is because they have to do it soon, because they don't want to risk them doing it again. They don't want to risk delaying so long that Donald Trump could win again, you know? My guess is that they're running on the clock, right? Like, if they take so long to bring this against him, then it would he could win, and then they wouldn't be able to do shit. Because if Trump becomes president again, legitimately or illegitimately, he's untouchable. The Republican Party would consolidate behind him and make him immune to any legal proceeding. Do you think Trump running for president, knowing his chances are slim just to avoid all these criminal proceedings? Wasn't there a guy at a Republican event recently who said that Trump was running to avoid jail? Wasn't there a guy who said that recently? He got booed from the crowd, but it was a Republican guy. Who said that? Was it Chris Christie? No, Chris Christie said Trump is almost certainly going to jail, but there was another more recent one where somebody, it was a couple days ago, where somebody said, yeah, Chris Christie has been going after Trump pretty hard lately. It was Will Hurd? Yeah, this guy.
One of the things we need in our elected leaders, for them to tell the truth, even if it's unpopular. Donald Trump is not running for president to make America great again. Donald Trump is not running for president to represent the people that voted for him in 2016 and 2020. Donald Trump is running to stay out of prison. And if we elect, I know, listen, I know the truth is hard. But if we elect Donald Trump, we are willingly giving Joe Biden 4 more years in the White House, and America can't handle that.
Colt, he's still not up there. He will be soon, though. The Obama judge overseeing the case has imposed really strict penalties in the Jan 6 case. The only federal judge in Washington who has sentenced January 6 defendants' sentences longer than the government had requested. Mr. Trump, your January 6 corruption case will be handled by Judge Tanya Chutkan. What do you know her for? Oh, yeah, she was the one who was given a recommendation for the sentences of the Jan 6 insurrectionists and doubled it. Good luck. Hell yes. There's no way. There's literally no way. The jury selection process would have to roll 20 consecutive ones, and we just get, or 12, I suppose, and it would like every single guy on the stand is just like a secret QAnoner who the prosecutor like didn't notice or something. Oh my god, it's almost too good to be true. Yeah, honestly, like this almost makes the results of the document mishandling case irrelevant. No, I can't. I don't want the secret to be known, Tempest. I don't think that's going to come into play. If this ends up getting settled through nullification, then like America will self-nuke. I don't know. I cannot. We cannot invoke this. Doesn't it need to be unanimous? What if there's only 1 or 2 QAnoners? I don't really think that's going to happen. The proceedings only go on for so long. We'll see. So we won. I mean, never doubt the ability for things to get much worse very quickly without us knowing why or how or predicting it. But yeah, wow. It's looking good. I mean, this might make the documents case irrelevant. He only needs to be gotten on one of these. Jail's jail. Does anybody know? Can anyone find out what the sentencing guidelines are for these charges? Ah, damn it, there's a fly in the room. It's like 20 years, I think, per charge. Is there a minimum sentence for any of them, or are all of them discretionary? No minimum? Okay. But the judge is the one who determines the sentence, and the judge is on our side. Yeah, well, I mean, we can assume that unless the judge, for some reason, decides to break character and just not assign any prison time, that Trump would be in prison for the rest of his life. Will Trump attempt to get the judge recused? I'm sure Trump's legal team will attempt everything, but there's like no ground upon which he could get the judge recused. This is so important. It's so important that everyone named in this indictment goes and rots in a hole in the ground until they die. It's so important. Like these are literally like the architects of an attempted like fascist coup. These are the people who at the highest level worked to destroy this country. They are more dangerous than any foreign military leader. There is no member of the Taliban, there is no member of ISIS or Al-Qaeda who is more dangerous, not by a fraction of a fraction as much, as dangerous as they are. You know, the die has to be cast. The lesson has to be learned. They have to go in a hole in the ground. They cannot. They have come closer to destroying this country than literally any other force in existence since the Confederate secession. And you know what we did to the Confederates? Vernon Sherman went on down south. Okay, so the way we dealt with the last greatest threat was highly aggressive. This can't be a slap on the wrist situation. Will this deter future coups? Yes. That's how. If there are horrendous legal consequences to trying to do a coup, that does absolutely make it harder to do coups in the future. Not only because you put away the first ones, but also because you threaten the next ones. Show them, hey, attempt a coup, go for it. But if you fail, you will rot in a hole in the ground. You can, you want to do a coup? You want to like do a big conspiracy to orchestrate an overthrow of the United States election results? All right, I mean, try it. But if you fail, it's your life.
You all to silence your cell phones.
Silence your cell phones.
Laptops. Anything that makes noise would be helpful. In just a few moments, I expect Special Counsel Jack Smith to come to this podium and make a statement of about 2 minutes in length. He will not take questions. If you have any questions after the press conference is over, please see me on the side. Any questions right now? Don't do it. All right. Thank you.
Make sure your cell phones are off. Late! Now I know how you guys feel when I'm 1 minute late because I'm finishing a bagel. Bitch.
And hearing live from Special Counsel Jack Smith announcing an indictment against former President Donald Trump in attempts to overturn the 2020 election. The Trump campaign issuing a statement that reads, "This is nothing more than the latest corrupt chapter in the continued pathetic attempt by the Biden crime family and their weaponized Department of Justice to interfere with the 2024 presidential election, in which President Trump is the undisputed frontrunner and leading by substantial margins." If you missed the special counsel's statement, you can watch it online at cspan.org, and we'll get your reaction on tomorrow's Washington Journal here on C-SPAN starting at 7 a.m. Eastern.
That was pretty perfunctory, but I didn't expect anything else. Oh, by the way, in case you guys thought that was it, this is just the federal government. Jack Smith, special prosecutor, FBI. This is being done in D.C. This doesn't count for state charges. Michigan prosecutors charge Trump allies in felonies involving voting machines illegal testing. There's actually apparently a couple of states that are leveraging charges against specific Jan 6 or election fraud related stuff that took place within their state. It's Georgia. It's this is Michigan. Hold on. Georgia Trump court case. Judge rejects Trump's effort to short-circuit Georgia election case. Yeah, they have their own prosecutor for the 2020 election investigation. They tried to stop it, and the judge told them to suck a dick. So that'll be coming up soon, too. Dude, Trump's never going to be able to go to prison because he's going to be on trial the whole... like, his sentence is not to go to prison. It's rather to spend his entire life being ferried between courthouses so that he can have the years he's going to spend in prison theoretically just ramp up increasingly with time, you know? Incredible stuff. What does this mean for the presidential election? Will DeSantis run 100%? DeSantis is probably going to run, but he's not popular enough to win against Joe Biden. He's just not. He will not win against Joe Biden. Like, I would give it 2%. I am so confident that DeSantis would lose against Joe Biden that I would call it like 1 to 50. Like so low, you know? Donald Trump has a better chance against Joe Biden. Still not a good one, I think. You know, he might just be in prison. He might actually be in prison. What poll, facetious? He's trying to scapegoat his lawyers, too. Trump's plan to save himself, scapegoat his coup lawyers. It's not going to work here. He made his statements televised. It's not gonna work here. God damn it, I can't read New York Times articles. Can the race really be that close? Yes, Biden and Trump are tied. Okay, the Times Siena poll. Hold on, let me see. Thank you, facetious. Much appreciated. There we go. Okay, now let me explain why this doesn't matter. All right? I've said this before, but the problem is that, again, Trump supporters are in a cult. People who support Trump are ride or die Trump. They are hardline committed to Trump no matter what he does, okay? The thing with Biden is that because Biden doesn't run a cult, there's a lot more variance and hesitation for people. But Trump doesn't have to work to unite a coalition of disinterested voters. Biden does. And what that means is that, very much like what we saw in 2020, it might seem like Trump has the overwhelming support, but that's because, again, that's cult factor behavior, all right? When the actual election turns out, you see a very different set of results, okay? Of course, this is predicated on the assumption we don't all vote for Cornel West. Blue wave, baby. Yeah, exactly. Trump has a lower ceiling and a higher floor. Exactly. In fact, the ceiling and the floor for Trump are basically in the same place, you know? And polling you're going to see for Biden more than a year out from the election, the floor is going to be relatively low and the ceiling is going to be relatively high. And as it gets closer, it's likely the floor and ceiling will contract and arrive at a position that is higher than Trump's. In fact, I would say the fact that they're tied right now in this poll is actually terrible for Trump, for that exact reason. The floor and ceiling of Trump aren't going to move because these cultists are locked in. But for Biden, they will. And as they both move towards the median, you're going to see the average raise. Again, I can't predict the future, but I strongly believe what I'm saying. I'm not just making shit up. You guys know for a fact that if I think things are bad, I will say that I think things are bad. The poll has a Republican oversample. Does that matter? Yes, that matters. By what proportion? Under image, including an oversample of 818 registered Republican voters. What? 1,329 registered voters, an oversample of 818? It was that disproportionate? So what? 500 to 800 Democrat to Republican? Okay, right. Okay, yeah, okay. Guys, I really genuinely don't think Joe Biden has that much to worry about in the presidential. Okay? I genuinely actually think that we can feel relatively secure. I think what we need to be concerned about is the Senate. Senate's what I'm concerned about. Okay, the presidency, less so. The Senate, we need to be concerned about. And the House, of course, but, you know. Did they correct based on national averages? I assume they corrected. They would have had to have corrected, but it's still like a weirdly disproportionate result that can indicate a bias, you know? It also matters how exactly they did the correction. This is regressive analysis stuff. It's yeah. They would have proportioned the answer based on the proportion of the different parties. It's a whole thing. This isn't regression analysis. What are you talking about? No, when you take like a proportion of participation within a poll and then you proportion the weight. Okay, a multivariate regressive analysis is more complicated, but the basic format of a multivariate regressive analysis is that you use a model to proportion out the weight of any given instance within a poll to try to scale it towards another set of weights or qualifiers that you use by determining the proportion. So no, it's not a multivariate regressive analysis. I just said that flippantly, like regressive analysis stuff, but I mean like they're weighing it based on the like the disproportionate participation of Republicans in the poll. But it's not literally multivariate. Did you change your mind? I thought you said Trump would never see jail time. I will admit, I didn't think Trump would see jail time from the mishandling documents case. This might actually do it. Because again, the sentencing is determined by the judge, and the judge is someone who seems to have an ideological bias towards goodness. So I might have said regression or regressive. I might have mixed them up, Vote Night. Multivariate regressive analysis. It's a thing. It's known to exist. Ruben is playing on the cat tree. He's upside down. Does that mean Obama did a good thing for once? Obama has done at least a few good things. But, you know, it is entirely possible that this will be one of the most consequential decisions Obama has ever made. The appointment of this judge might end up setting a national precedent that exceeds any prior when it comes to the criminal conduct of presidents and former presidents, or of political leaders in general. So we'll see how it goes. We are in extremely untreaded territory here. Joe Biden's polling's been good. Yeah, the aggregate polling that I've seen, this is from 538, the aggregate polling that I've seen has been that he stacks up favorably, like, pretty consistently. 44 Biden to 38 DeSantis. I wouldn't trust that too much for DeSantis. 44-41 Trump. This one has Trump in the lead. If you look at the aggregate, it seems like there's a lot of variance depending on where and how and the details. But also keep in mind what I said about the floor and the ceiling narrowing for Biden as we get closer to the general. It won't be especially close either. Oh, yeah, to be clear, I think that if Biden runs against DeSantis, it will be a blowout. And I think if Biden runs against Trump, the most likely outcome is a comfortable lead. So my belief on like the average or the likely outcome is not going to be like a close election. You know, incumbent does have an advantage as well. Wait, a blowout electorally or via popular vote? Both. I mean, I think it would be enough that the popular vote would matter for the electoral count, you know. Trump's floor is falling out. Well, that's an interesting question. Will the floor fall? How worried are you about Cornel West voters ruining it? 0. Cornel West is doing a miserable job of actually advocating for himself as a viable alternative to the Democrats. All I've seen him do so far is cozy up to the right wing. He went on Fox News. He promoted Glenn Greenwald and Cornel West. He's Cornel West. Promoted Russell Brand and Glenn Greenwald. All I'm seeing is him doing the same, he's appealing to the same like the RFK grift, you know what I mean? I don't think it's going to do anything meaningful to the Democrats. He did promote Cornel West. That's true. That is true. No, I know that, Chrome Dome, but it means he's not really meaningfully appealing to Democrats. Do you think Trump is feeling scared, or is he still stupidly confident? No. I think Trump is petrified. I think he's absolutely petrified, for sure. 100% I think he is. I mean, in the past couple of months, he's seen a bevel of federal indictments. And a bunch of state charges as well that his lawyers seem powerless to stop. No, I think he's terrified.